Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The U.S. military has said that it has killed one person in a strike on a low-profile vessel allegedly suspected of carrying drugs in international waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Meanwhile, the U.S. Southern Command confirmed the strike on social media website X. Southern Russian region's governor Vladimir Vladimirov said a Ukrainian overnight drone attack sparked a fire at an industrial facility in Russia's southern Stavropol region. There were no injuries reported, while he did not specify which facility was on fire as well. U.S. Navy said 2 people have been killed after Mexican Navy plane has crashed in waters off of the U.S. state of Texas while carrying out a medical transfer. The Mexican Navy said that 8 people were traveling aboard the aircraft. 4 people were rescued alive as rescue efforts still continue. Sudan's Prime Minister has called on the UN Security Council to back a peace plan for the war-torn country that calls for a ceasefire and global monitoring of the conflict. Since April 2023, Sudan's army has battled the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The war has killed many and displaced millions. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has stressed that large-scale production of the narcotic Captagon in Syria has been disrupted, as the Syrian government announced it has dismantled 15 Captagon manufacturing facilities and 13 smaller storage sites. President Ahmed al-Shara of Syria has received a high-level Turkish delegation in Damascus. The delegation included Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, Defense Minister Yasir Güler, and the head of the National Intelligence Organization Ibrahim Kalin, as both neighbors work on enhancing their bilateral relations. Australia is moving towards its toughest gun laws after a deadly Sydney attack. New South Wales will vote on sweeping restrictions and a ban on terrorist symbols to boost public safety. NVIDIA plans to ship 8 H200 AI chips to China before Lunar New Year, pending approval. The move follows a U.S. policy shift following sales with 25% fee. Now for this hour, we start with Russia-Ukraine. Russia's southern Stavropol region's governor Vladimirov has said that a Ukrainian overnight drone attack has sparked a fire at an industrial area in southern Stavropol. No injuries and casualties have been reported so far. Russian oil major company Lukoil runs the Stavrolen petrochemical complex at Budyonovsk in Stavropol, and the region also hosts gas pipeline infrastructure and fuel storage sites that make the part of Russia's broader energy and chemical system. Ukraine has reportedly attacked the Stavrolen plant before, as Ukraine has said that its strikes inside of Russia and away from the front line are aimed at crippling Russia's military effort in the war that Moscow has launched nearly 4 years ago. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Vasilin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Professor, now looking at this, the escalating tensions and attacks from both sides, how do you think this is going to be jeopardizing the ongoing efforts for peace talks?
Well, these are normal attacks during wartime, and what Ukrainians are doing are reducing the military capacity of the aggressor and criminal state, Russia here. Nothing wrong, should be done every day. And in terms of the peace plan, it's going nowhere because of the incompetence of the American administration and the total disinterest of Russia to reach a peace. Basically, they are playing Donald Trump like a puppet, and they don't want peace, but they continue that theater. I don't know to call it comedy or tragedy, But that theater continues for the last 11 months with no progress whatsoever. I effectively stopped watching those meetings over the last weeks because they produced nothing. And the last round in Florida, the one before that in Berlin, all these shuttles between Moscow and Washington produced nothing in terms of peace, exactly because Russia doesn't want peace. It's so simple. But they play Donald Trump, and Donald Trump played the card of showing himself as a peacemaker because he has nothing to report otherwise. He has no success anywhere, not at home in the United States, not internationally. And they continue those peace efforts. And I don't know for how long, because this is really a tragic comedy. There was such a genre in the ancient Greek theater without any success. So Ukraine should be supported strongly with any weapons they need, including Tomahawk. So if the United States want to make a change, they should deliver Tomahawks rockets to Ukraine. And that will make Russians think about whether they will continue this charade, this comedy, or they should sit on the table and negotiate seriously a peace deal.
Yes, and you know, as you've mentioned, that they did not have any breakthrough, no big announcements, and do you think this has further demotivated President Trump on brokering peace between them, or do you think that President Trump is still motivated to continue, regardless of his frustration towards these two countries, to pursue peace?
Well, if he's demotivated, it's because of his own wrong strategy and tactics here. His incompetence makes him demotivated. He doesn't know what to do. What he should have done a long time ago was to support Ukraine and sanction Russia. He doesn't do either. He doesn't support Ukraine with Tomahawks and other missiles, long range, and they are very important to send a signal to Russia. But also, every time he mentions some sanctions on Russia, he doesn't deliver. So it's entirely Donald Trump's fault that this peace doesn't go anywhere. But also, as I said, it's Vladimir Putin's doesn't have any interest. He promised the Russians to occupy the entire Donbass by this Christmas, and he delivers nothing there too. And that's why Russians play the game with the Americans somehow to get some sort of concessions from Ukraine. They expect Ukraine to surrender, to withdraw its army from Donbass, which will never happen. Ukraine is defending its territory, it's very clear. All the Europeans are absolutely united behind Ukraine, and not only Europeans, Canadians, Japanese, South Koreans, Australians. There is a large support for Ukraine here, but Donald Trump simply doesn't understand all of that. I will tell even something more. If Kamala Harris was a president today, the war would have ended by now. And that, again, explains how incompetent and impotent is Donald Trump. He talks and talks, but delivers nothing. What Kamala Harris would have done by now was exactly strong support for Ukraine, full sanctions on Russia, and that would have produced by today a ceasefire, if not a peace deal.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Popovsky, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. For now, we stay on the topic. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that women and children were among the civilians taken by Russian forces in Ukraine's Sumy region during the recent fighting near the border.
Різні люди. Там десь 17-18 людей, вони були призивного віку. Інші люди – це жінки і діти. Здивовані, що там були діти. Просто здивовані, що батьки так відносяться до своїх дітей, але тим не менш. Значить, ці 52 людини, вони там живуть, жили, не переїжджали. Вони просто не очікували, що русські військові просто зайдуть і заберуть їх в полон. Ось що відбулося. Що стосується наших військових, там, я не знаю, чи обставини, я знаю, що 13 наших військових в полоні також. Але наші війська могли знищити ворога там, могли на відстані знищити їх і артилерією, і дронами. Просто не стали це робити, тому що там цивільні. Не хотіли вбити просто.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Veselin Popovsky. He's a professor in Weinstein at Tyndall Global Law School, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, it's very shocking that, Russia has taken these people. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, that's what terrorists do. If we look at every terrorist group, Boko Haram, Hamas, Islamic State, that's what they do. They abduct civilian children and women. Russia is a terrorist state. It does exactly what Hamas, Boko Haram, Islamic State and all terrorists do. And in much more numbers. Remember how appalled we were when Boko Haram abducted 250 girls, or when Hamas abducted similar number of Israelis. Russia does this 100 times, and in 100 times more numbers. So we should be similarly appalled and condemning what Russia does for the last 4 years, repeatedly, many times. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian children and civilians and women are abducted by Russia. That's what terrorists do. That's what Vladimir Putin does. Very clear, no surprise. And going back to my previous point, it needs a strong international support. Give Ukraine every support necessary. Give them Tomahawks. Give them every weapon they need to defend their territory. I'll go even to nuclear weapons. Give Ukraine nuclear weapons. And that's what will make Putin surrender. This is the only way forward here. So without that, we will see this continuing and continuing for another year, another 4 years. Again, I don't know how long it will take for the world to realize how to deal with Vladimir Putin.
Thank you for highlighting that, Professor Popovsky. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now moving to Turkey, Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has said that the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces in Syria appear to have no intention of honoring a commitment to integrate into the state's armed forces by the year-end deadline. Turkey views the US-backed SDF, which controls swatches of northeastern Syria, as a terrorist organization and has warned of military action if the group does not honor the agreement. Let's listen into what the Turkish foreign minister has shared.
SDG'nin Suriye yönetimine entegre olması, bunu diyalog yoluyla, uzlaşma yoluyla herkesin lehine olacak şekilde yapması ve Suriye'nin tarihinde hiç olmadığı kadar istikrar, bütünlük ve refaha kavuşmasının önünde engel olmaktan çıkması önemli. Değerli meslektaşım da ifade ettiği gibi orada kendi izlenimleri çok fazla ilerleme kaydetmeye niyeti olmadıklarını görüyoruz. Burada tabii bunun sebepleri üzerinde de konuştuk. Orada SDG'nin belli faaliyetlerini İsrail ile koordinasyon içerisinde götürüyor olması gerçeği aslında Şam'la yürütülen görüşmelerde de şu anda büyük bir engel teşkil etmekte.
Syrian government forces and the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces agreed to de-escalate in the northern city of Aleppo after a wave of attacks that both sides blame on each other, which left at least 3 civilians dead and several wounded. Now we welcome back Professor Veselin Popovsky. He's a professor in Weinstein at Tyndall Global Law School, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now looking at this, how might the SDF's relationship with both Syrian government and United States, how do you think this could influence its decision to integrate or resist integration pushed by Turkey?
Yes, it was very unfortunate exchange of fire,
Yes.
But it's minimal, and it happened over the last 24 hours, and immediately both sides de-escalated, which is kind of a good news. They talk normally, the two sides, the military, and they de-escalate very quickly. So here, on this one, I'm much more positive, and I think there will be an integration of the Syrian Democratic Force, the Kurdish-led SDF, into the Syrian governmental forces at some point. Maybe not, well, the plan was to do it by the end of the year. It may take a bit longer. It's not an easy process, and for that matter, let's not push too much now, but at some point, obviously it will happen. The two sides fought together against Bashar al-Assad over 15 years. So obviously they will unite at some point. And the problem is Turkey here. Turkey should accept that. They don't want to recognize that the SDF is not a terrorist organization. Well, they adopted that decision a long time ago regarding the Kurdish as secessionists, as creating national security problems in Turkey, but this was a long time ago. Turkey definitely needs to develop its position on this and accept that Syria is a sovereign country. Kurdish 40 million, it's a big minority. It's one of the biggest minority that is stateless and have no state representation, but we need to respect those people with their own culture, traditions, and language, and history, and all of that. So yes, I expect integration, despite the small fire exchange yesterday, to continue and to be completed, again, if not until the end of the year, very soon after that. They talk and they basically don't have major tensions and problems to complete the integration, because that's what Syria wants. Syria wants to be, and the president is very clear, al-Shara is very clear, he travels around the world, he's really I met him a week ago in Doha, he's a very charming man. He really is in a charming offensive all over the world, he meets everybody, and he's really somebody to respect, to give him all the trust and time to deliver what Syria wants, and Syria is moving into the right direction. There are difficulties, obviously, there is violence in many parts of Syria, but long term I'm very optimistic that Syria will be peaceful and even democratic. They are talking about elections and multi-party system and everything else, what civilized nations and democratic nations have.
Wow, that is so cool that you met him. Thank you for sharing that and with the insight with us, Professor Veselin Popovsky. Now we move on to Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hailed a government's decision to establish a commission of inquiry into the October 7, 2023 attack, assuring the public that it would not be subject to political influence. The opposition and much of the Israeli public have called for an independent inquiry into the events leading up to and including the 2023 Hamas attack. Polls show more than 70% of Israelis want a state commission of inquiry independent of the government. Let's in fact listen into what President Netanyahu has shared.
ועדת השרים לענייני חקיקה אישרה היום את הצעת החוק להקמת ועדת חקירה ממלכתית מיוחדת. זאת תהיה ועדה שוויונית לחקר אירועי ה-7 באוקטובר והנסיבות שהובילו אליהם. עכשיו, מדובר כאן בוועדת חקירה בלתי תלויה, עם סמכויות מלאות, בדיוק כפי שנקבע בחוק ועדות החקירה. בניגוד לניתן, פוליטיקאים לא יהיו חברים בוועדה. הרכב החברים בוועדה ייקבע באופן שוויוני, חצי על ידי הקואליציה וחצי על ידי האופוזיציה. הוועדה תורכב ממומחים בביטחון, באקדמיה, במשפט, וגם הורים שכולים שישמשו כמשקיפים.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Yossi Cooper-Rosser. He's an Israeli intelligence and security expert, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Yossi, for joining us again. Now, Yossi, looking at this, what more can you tell us about this ongoing probe of the 2023 attack by Hamas and what has led to this attack?
Well, there's a long debate here in Israel on how to investigate what happened before October 7th and what happened on the day itself, and even after that. Everybody wants the investigation committee to be formed in a way that would guarantee the results of the investigation in advance. So the opposition wants a state commission to be responsible of that according to the law of State Commission, which means that the Supreme Judge will decide who are going to be the members of this committee. And everybody knows that the Supreme Judge and judges in Israel are very much anti the government and are not trusted by the government and by some of the government supporters. Whereas the government wants to have a commission that will be made of half of the experts, as you just heard Prime Minister Netanyahu saying, half of the experts representing or chosen by the coalition, and half of them chosen by the opposition. The opposition refuses to go there because they want to see this state commission led by the Supreme Judge. And we are stuck with that. And the point is that the government started moving forward towards creating this state commission that they want. And we'll see what happens. It's going to be very difficult. I think it's going to be stuck.
So how do you think, how significant will be whatever comes out of this? And, how credible are assurances that a government-established commission of inquiry, although you mentioned it's going to be half and half, how do you think they can operate without the current political influence or pressure from current government?
They can. If the opposition is going to support the government proposal, then they can. It's going to be half and half, as we say. But I'm afraid that the opposition is not going to go for that because they would like to see a commission that is on their side, that is created by the Supreme Judge that is supporting the opposition. And that's why they are not going to show any flexibility and readiness to accept a compromise. So I'm afraid we are not going to have an investigation committee. And this is a pity because many questions are left open and it's not clear what happened. And many people want to know who is responsible for what happened, much less than they want to know what happened. They think they know what happened, and they only want the commission to say he and he are to blame for that terrible fiasco.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Yossi Cooper-Rosser. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Iran's nuclear activity will top the agenda when he meets U.S. President Donald Trump next week. Speaking in Jerusalem alongside the leaders of Greece and Cyprus, Netanyahu said Israel is closely watching recent Iranian military exercises. Iranian state media reports missile drills across several cities. Tehran denies seeking nuclear weapons. Netanyahu has said that Israel is not looking for confrontation but wants stability, prosperity, and peace, while pushing for limits on Iran's uranium enrichment. He has said talks with President Trump will also focus on the next phase of the Gaza plan, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and preventing Houthi attacks on shipping. Israel, Greece, and Cyprus agreed to deepen security cooperation and advance energy transport and power link projects connecting the Middle East with Europe. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Yossi Cooper-Rosser. He's an Israeli intelligence and security expert, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Mr. Yossi, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, a lot on the table for the upcoming U.S. President and Israeli Prime Minister meeting. What do you think, what will be a priority for them on the agenda on the upcoming talks?
Well, I think the priority is how to make the vision of peace and stability in the Middle East come true when the opponents of this peace are still able to operate and to control several areas of the Middle East and rebuild their capabilities. We see it with Hamas in Gaza, we see it with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and we see it with the Iranians rebuilding their missile capabilities after what happened in Operation Rising Lion in June 2025. So we are watching that and we are concerned, and so are the Americans, I guess, although they create the impression that everything is fine. Everything is not fine, and something needs to be done with all these fronts. I think the most pressing one is the Gaza one, where we have to bring about the end of the Hamas rule over Gaza and disarm this terror organization. And this is a part of the plan that President Trump has prepared for the region. And this is critical to be executed as soon as possible. Then there is Hezbollah's disarming that is a task of the Lebanese government, and they fail to do that. They create the impression that they make progress, but in fact it's very limited progress, and much depends on what Israel is going to do. And I think Israel is going to continue putting pressure on Hezbollah in order to allow the Lebanese government a better chance of disarming this terror organization. And then finally, there's this question of the missiles production in Iran. On the one hand, we have to do something about it as soon as possible because it is creating a critical threat to Israel. But on the other hand, we need the Americans on our side, and I think this is going to be a crucial issue when Netanyahu comes to Mar-a-Lago, because the Americans seem to prefer dealing with this matter through sanctions and through political pressure. And the fact is that it doesn't seem that these pressures are making enough impression on the Iranian government, and they continue to develop their capabilities to hit Israel, and are not shy about it. They show it all over the place, and they speak about it and threaten Israel. So Israel, with the lessons we learned from the 7th of October, we know that we cannot leave these kind of threats unchecked. And this is going to be a matter of discussion between the Prime Minister and President Trump.
Thank you for highlighting that. And Yossi, lastly, looking at this, while U.S. President is involved in many other peace mediating, and not just only between Hamas, Gaza, and Israel, how effective do you think his mediation has been so far? And moving on, what do you think he shouldn't be missing so that these ceasefire talks hold on and hold ground, and they make a concrete, outcome?
Well, I think President Trump's efforts were very successful in all these arenas. He has managed to make to create a new situation where Hamas was ready to release the hostages, and was accepting a plan that calls for its disarmament. In Lebanon, we have a ceasefire that is its terms are very favorable to Israel. And in Iran, the military nuclear project was obliterated, as President Trump says, and very considerable damage was done to the missile project as well. So there's a lot of progress done in moving towards a better Middle East. Still much is left in front of us to do. We have to finish the job in Gaza. We have to allow Lebanon to be freed from the hold of Hezbollah. We need to make sure that Iran doesn't pose a threat. And we need to make progress on the Abraham Accords. We want to see more countries joining the Abraham Accords. And all of these are major challenges for the government here in Israel and for the President of the United States at the same time.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Yossi Cooper-Wasser for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to South Korea. South Korean startup InnoSpace has failed in its first attempt to reach orbit after its Hanbit Nano rocket crashed about a minute after liftoff from Brazil. The launch was carried out from the Alcantara Space Center. It marked the first ever orbital launch attempted by a South Korean private company. InnoSpace confirmed an anomaly shortly after liftoff and cut its live broadcast, with the cause of the failure still under investigation. The rocket was carrying small satellites for clients in Brazil and India, along with technology demonstrations payloads. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.